Good evening, everybody, and again for joining this image live session on YouTube. And I'm Anand Singh, and today we will be going through. Uh, Today we'll be going through uh, reading skills. This is prescribed by the Aryabhat Knowledge University for all BBA, BCA, BCom, the second semester. So it's very much relevant to most of you, and you can actually join me right now live on the YouTube live page of CIMAGE. So uh, let's take a look at what we have today, what we have in store for you today. Reading skills. And, it is a good technique to learn English, pronounce your words correctly, and develop a sound vocabulary. So this is all the things that actually reading helps in. Now, one should develop this habit from a young age and get a good command over the language, an integral part to learn that particular language. So the habit of reading it should be encouraged in children. आप लोगों के भाई बहन होंगे जिनको कि अगर आप कम एज में अच्छे कम एज में अगर आप उनको रीडिंग का हैबिट अगर दिलाते हैं तो उस भाषा में बेशक उनकी पकड़ बहुत अच्छी होगी because you get to learn all the things that I just stated. Now, let's look at the definition of reading. What exactly is reading? इसकी परिभाषा क्या है reading की? एक नोट में कहना चाहूँगा कि reading is actually a mental process. You know, there are many definitions of reading. Reading is when someone looks up in a written text and starts to absorb the information from a written linguistic message, contents. This can be done silently, as in silent reading. The understanding that results is called reading comprehension. हम लोग के बहुत से syllabus में right from 10th onwards we have been doing comprehension. In comprehension we read an unseen passage, we understand what it means, understand the meaning of the words, and then we answer the questions. So this is a perfect example of comprehension. Comprehension का मतलब समझ में आना. जो passage है, जो unseen passage है, उसको समझना और फिर प्रश्न का उत्तर देना. So this can be, as I mentioned, is a silent reading, and the other method is also a oral reading, where saying a written text aloud, which is oral reading, this can be done with or without understanding the content. So it can happen both ways, with or without understanding the contents. Let us find, or let us understand these three levels, three different levels that that reading can actually be put to. First, जो पहला मीनिंग होता है वो प्योर या लिटरल मीनिंग ऑफ द फेमिलियर वर्ड्स गिवन. प्योर या लिटरल मीनिंग उसमें ये होता है कि जो लिखा हुआ है वो एग्जैक्टली सेम मीनिंग है उसका. नाउ द वे आई एम सेइंग, द रीज़न व्हाई आई एम सेइंग इट, बिकॉज बहुत जगह जब लिखा जाता है, आप लेवल 2 में अगर आप देखेंगे रीडिंग का, तो recognition of the writer's intention of the given text, that has to be recognized and that has to be understood. लेखक जो होते हैं वो कई बार कोई चीज़ उनका भाव होता है. It has an inner meaning to what they have written. That is like a metaphor, a metaphorical meaning. So अगर आप किसी एग्जाम्पल के लिए मैं आपको अगर बताऊं कि कोई प्रोवर्ब हो या या एक इडियम हो, जो इडियम्स के एक्चुअल लिटरल मीनिंग जो लिखा रहता है वो नहीं आता है, उसका मतलब वो नहीं निकल करके आता है. There is a metaphorical meaning or an inner meaning. So and many of the writers, they write something but they don't mean that. So we have to be able, our intelligence, our reading skills has to go into the level of what exactly is the writer trying to say. वो उनका भाव क्या है, कहने का मतलब क्या है, क्या वही चीज़ है जो लिखा हुआ है वो लिटरल मीनिंग में होता है. लेकिन अगर जो recognition of the writer's intention, then his intention might be little different to what he's written. And let's look at the third, or the personal experience. You know, when we read, we have our personal experience. जब हम किसी passage पे आते हैं तो हमारा पहले का तजुर्बा भी होता है. We recognize some words and we put that together and we comprehend a meaning. So our previous experience, our reading skills that we've read articles before that, that also plays a very important role in understanding a given text. So the three levels can be described as: when we read the lines; when we read between the lines; and we read beyond the lines. So these are the three things. When we read in between the lines, इसका मतलब होता है कि inner translates it into his mind as to what the person is trying to say. Now, there are various techniques of reading. Lots of techniques are there. There are methodologies. There are scientific ways in which uh, reading can be done. और हर चीज़ के लिए आपकी आवश्यकता क्या है, आपका ऑब्जेक्टिव क्या है जब आप कोई पैसेज पढ़ते हैं, उसके हिसाब से आप रीडिंग टेक्निक पिकअप करते हैं. So if you're reading something for leisure, something in your free time, you will read it in a different way or a different technique. I will come to the techniques in a short while. If you're reading something for an exam, then you will try to memorize what you're reading so that you can recreate or reproduce that information in an examination. So let's look at the first technique of reading. It's a rather popular style of reading. Uh, और बहुत से लोग internationally acclaimed भी है ये. This is called the SQ3R technique. The SQ3R is nothing but an abbreviation. Shortened है कुछ words के लिए. हम लोग discuss करेंगे 5 words को shorten करके SQ3R में लिखा हुआ है. It is an abbreviation to help and remember the steps to make references to it a lot simpler. Now, the symbols SQ3R, it stands for the steps followed in using this method. The first is S as in survey, Q as in question, R as in read, or three R's in read, recall, and review. So these are the things that we actually are looking at the SQ3R. I will explain each one of them individually. Now, when you do the first step, that is the survey. Now, this is a practice which is followed before a class or before a lecture. आपको यूजुअली कोई टीचर बता देते होंगे कि भाई कल जो है हम लोग ये लेसन idioms and phrases करेंगे. Now that you have prior knowledge, आप घर पे उसके पहले ही तैयारी करेंगे. Survey is part of that readiness where you're getting yourself ready. Now, the first thing that in the survey जो हम लोग जो काम करते हैं, this survey should take no more than 10 to 25 minutes. 10 या 25 मिनट से ज़्यादा समय इसमें नहीं लगता है. Because you read it in short. आप ऊपरी रूपरेखा तय करते हैं कि उसमें है क्या, कंटेंट कहना क्या चाह रहा है. Even on the longest chapter, you will not take more than 10 to 25 minutes. And the purpose of the survey, सबसे बड़ा survey हम लोग क्यों करते हैं? The purpose of surveying the chapter is to get a general idea of what is it going to be about, and what kind of information the author gives us. ये प्रमुख रूप है जो हम पता करना चाहते हैं कि सर्वे में कि what is it about and what is the author trying to convey. How many subtopics are there in the information, in the whole write-up or in the passage, and how many sub-steps is it broken down into, and how much time you will have to spend reading it. So this is the reason why we conduct the first chapter, the first method rather, of surveying, uh, because we want to find out what the author is trying to say. उसका प्रमुख उनका भाव क्या है, कहने का अर्थ क्या है. इसलिए हम लोग एक सर्वे करते हैं ऊपरी रूपरेखा. We read through it not with a lot of concentration, but just to find out what is this topic about. The second the second step rather is the question. Again, this question this procedure is also done before the class. What do we do in this step? We first find out the questions. Turn each bold-faced heading, जो भी bold में लिखा हुआ है, जो heading है, we turn that into a question by using one of the following words. Either it is who did it, or what, or where, when, why, or how. So we frame questions on the whole passage according to on these lines with these words: who, what, where, when, and why, or how. क्वेश्चंस इसलिए हम लोग तैयार करते हैं क्योंकि कोई भी एग्जाम के लिए जब आप पढ़ते हैं तो आपको पता चल जाता है कि किस टाइप के क्वेश्चंस इसमें से निकल सकते हैं. So you have to be intelligent enough to deduce the kind of questions that are likely to be asked in an examination. So that is the whole practice of formulating questions that can be asked. Not in an examination, लेकिन क्या क्या question बनते हैं इस particular चैप्टर पे या इस पर्टिकुलर पैसेज पे. The third step again is after class. The class ho chuka, lecture is complete. Then we go back home and we actively read the section of the text accompanying the heading for an answer to the questions you asked yourself in step 2. जो प्रश्न आपने पूछा है, who, what, where, why, इनके उत्तर आप ढूंढते हो when you read it, uh, when you go back home after the lecture and you read for those answers. The answers will usually be made up of the main ideas or the paragraphs or the supporting details. जो main निचोड़ है उसके answers आपको निकल करके आएंगे. Then you must read the section to find the answer. So that is the whole process, or that is the whole step that reading after the class is involved. After reading, we try and recall. हम स्मरण करने की कोशिश करते हैं कि जो हमने answers निकाले हैं वो क्या थे. Just having the answer is not adequate. You know, just recognizing the information as correct or incorrect. Your objective type की बात नहीं हो रही है यहाँ पे. You should be able to recall the answers and rephrase them or put them in your own words so that your power of expression is exhibited and it's not, you're not copying the author's words or डायरेक्ट उन्हीं के phrases या words आप copy नहीं कर रहा हो. अपने जो शैली होती है वो अपने शब्दों में होनी चाहिए. And then we review. The fourth, rather the fifth hour is for reviewing. When we review or we check whether we have followed the other steps, the other 4 steps promptly and effectively. So the review method जो समीक्षा करते हैं कि हमने बाकी ऊपर दिए गए steps को क्या हमने follow किया है या नहीं. So that is the SQ3R technique, and there are other scientific techniques as well which have been proven to be effective to readers of all strata. और reading skills बहुत हद तक depend करते हैं professionalism पे भी. आप कौन से profession में हैं? So if an editor of a magazine or a newspaper, he has to read loads and loads of uh, written material, so he better be fast, because only after he says or he gives his consent does that actual writing go into print. Otherwise, it doesn't actually go without the approval of the editor. So let's look at some other types of techniques, reading techniques that are there. Another very popular reading technique or method is skimming. Now, skimming is sometimes referred to as gist reading. Skimming may help you. I'll come to what is gist reading. Skimming may help you to know what the text is about at a basic level or at a glance. ऊपरी निगाह से, जिसको कहते हैं कि सरसरी निगाह से. Usually at a glance का वही मतलब होता है. Usually people adopt this technique to read a newspaper or a magazine. It helps you to mentally and quickly shortlist those articles which you may consider for a more in-depth detailed reading later on. So skimming is a सरसरी निगाह से आप कोई चीज़ देखते हैं और उसका gist समझने को कोशिश करते हैं. Gist यानी वो उसका भाव क्या है? What does the writer want to convey in this particular writing? So you just read through it very quickly at a glance, just looking at, is this particular article on the economy, is it on sports, or what is it about? So you go through the heading and find out what the reading is about. So and skimming, इसमें आप लोग जान के अचंभा होगा, बहुत से people, I mean, here will be surprised that a trained reader can reach the speed of at least 700 words per minute after training themselves well in this method of reading. So you can read 700. Now this method is very useful to editors of magazines, as I said, proofreaders, जो professionally जिनको कि बहुत ज़्यादा पढ़ना होता है, and they have to read quickly because they can't stop and read. वो बहुत टाइम नहीं लगा सकते हैं क्योंकि बहुत ज़्यादा उनके पास पढ़ने का ही उनका मेन काम होता है, पढ़ के किसी चीज़ को करेक्ट करना या अप्रूव करना फॉर प्रिंटिंग. लेकिन इस मेथड में एक खामी है, दिक्कत है. कॉम्प्रिहेंशन और अंडरस्टैंडिंग बाय दिस मेथड इज़ वेरी लो और सुपरफिशियल. ऑब्वियसली जब आप कोई चीज़ को इतना जल्दी पढ़ेंगे, सरसरी निगाह से देखना है आपको, सिर्फ ये ढूंढने के लिए कि क्या है इसका जस्ट. सो इन दैट केस you will not be reading with comprehension or understanding in mind. You're just reading for the correctness of the information and so that it can go into the print as soon as possible. let's look at one more method of reading. That particular method is called scanning. Now this again, हम लोगों को जैसे मैंने पहले कहा कि हम लोग किस ऑब्जेक्टिव से पढ़ रहे हैं, हमारा उद्देश्य क्या है पढ़ने का, किसी भी पैसेज को या कोई भी आर्टिकल को, ये निर्धारित करेगा कि हम कौन सा मेथड अडॉप्ट करें, whether it will be SQ3R technique or whether it will be scanning or skimming through or it will be intensive reading or extensive reading. It depends on that method of choice is actually dependent on what is our objective of reading a particular passage. So let's look at scanning now. Scanning is a rather interesting technique. Scanning is reading a text quickly in order to find specific information. You're not looking for the whole what the text is trying to convey, लेकिन आप कोई चीज़ ढूंढ रहे हो, या तो वो फिगर हो सकता है, फिगर यानी डेटा, या किसी का नाम हो सकता है, किसी पैसेज में आप ढूंढ रहे हो. So you will adopt the technique of scanning. You will quickly run through the lines because you're looking for one specific information which you already have in your mind. So you're looking for that information. And let's suppose, I'll give you an example. Let's suppose you're looking for a word in the dictionary. आप उस पेज पे आते हो alphabetical order में, and then you're quickly scarring through the the dictionary because you have one particular word in mind जो आप ढूंढ रहे हो. So that is the best example of scanning. Like you're scanning for a particular word. There is a slight difference between skimming and scanning. The main difference that is there is skimming is a way of reading something in a very fast manner so as to grasp the main points. आप मुख्य चीज़ों को ही ढूंढ रहे हो कि इसने कहना क्या चाहता है. Whereas scanning means to look carefully and quickly at the written material so as to locate some data or some name or something that you already have in mind. So that is the difference between the two. Both you run through very quickly, but one you're looking for a piece of information. वो स्कैनिंग है, और स्किमिंग में आप ये देखना चाहते हो कि ये एडिशन या ये पर्टिकुलर पैसेज ये कहना क्या चाहता है. So this is the vital difference between the two. And there are other methods as well. As I mentioned, there's so many ways. People love to read for leisure, for pleasure. उनको पढ़ने में interest है किसी खास topic पे या कोई novel, तो वो एक interest का topic है. So they read out of that will come under the extensive reading technique. But right now, let's discuss the intensive reading. What exactly is meant by intensive reading? As the name suggests, intensive reading uh, refers to reading short text thoroughly and with clear goals. Again, उद्देश्य आपका पहले से है कि हम ये lesson या ये क्यों पढ़ रहे हैं. So such as to answer reading comprehension questions or to identify how sentences are linked. So आपका उद्देश्य कुछ भी हो सकता है इसमें. Now, when you are studying, the students actually adopt this intensive reading methodology. Why? Because they have to read something in depth, in detail, because they have to reproduce the answers maybe in an examination the next day or 1 week from now or 10 weeks from now. But when you study something with the intensity, the purpose of appearing in an exam and reproducing or recreating that information that you read, then that will come under the intensive reading technique. इसमें ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा कोशिश ये होती है कि जो आप पढ़ रहे हों वो आपके स्मरण में रहे लंबे टाइम तक. Mainly scholars and students and scholars, linguistic scholars, who are actually looking to improve their vocabulary by deducing the meaning of words, they adopt this particular technique of intensive reading. And the information read by this kind of methodology stays in your mind for a longer period of time. And we also have the other version that I just talked to you about is the extensive reading method. Now, extensive reading में कब हम लोग adopt करते हैं? When we read for pleasure. Extensive reading involves reading for pleasure and to develop general reading skills. There is an element of enjoyment. इसमें खुशी मिलती है और आप खाली समय में ये पढ़ सकते हैं because there is no pressure of what you're going to read is going to be asked for in an exam. So you read with less stress and you read with for the pleasure of reading. we should, this is the method that we should adopt, or we should let our younger brothers and sisters, you know, adopt, so that they can actually develop a taste for reading and thereby improve their hold on the English or the Hindi language, and the vocabulary and the word pronunciation. Because this is very, the extensive method of reading is very useful, and that is how most students actually study and read. Now, there's one more method, a very scientific method, which is a very scientifically proven method of reading, and that is the meta guiding. Now, the meta guiding was actually, this technique was evolved or discovered by Evelyn Wood, a gentleman known by the name of Evelyn Wood. He discovered this technique, and this was done mainly to improve the reading speed. बिकॉज यहाँ भी ये उन लोगों की ज़रूरत के लिए है जो बहुत तेज़ी से या बहुत ज़्यादा पढ़ने का है उनको, उनका प्रोफेशन ऐसा है जिसमें बहुत ज़्यादा चीज़ों को पढ़ने की एक बार में ज़रूरत होती है, प्रोफेशनल रीडर्स. So that is why this method is best suited for their needs to improve reading speed. It involves training yourself to read several words and understand them at a glance. It's a very challenging thing. आप कह सकते हो कि यार ऐसा कैसे possible? But then these are trained professionals who undergo maybe months of training to master this particular method, where they can read at a glance. At the same time, they can comprehend and store the information for later retrieval. So metaguiding is the visual or directional movement of the eye and hand coordinated, which involves using a finger or pen or a pencil or a stylus. Stylus is a tool which most professional readers use to point wherever they're reading. आप एक line पढ़ रहे हो तो उस line पे वो लोग पढ़ते जाते हैं. But the moment you change the line, then the second line is read like this. There's always a pointer. Now, if you don't have a stylus, people can use a finger or a pen or a pencil, depending on the resource that you have and you're comfortable with. So you can adapt any of these tools. Now, the main method that these are used to point the words that is being read and view to aid the eyes to move faster. जैसे आंखों में और आपके हाथ में एक coordination develop होता है. So your eyes follow your hand and you don't miss a single line. कई बार हम लोग ऐसे पढ़ते हैं, तो आप लोगों के साथ भी हुआ होगा ऐसा, मेरे साथ भी होता है कई बार, कि you miss a line in totality. From the first line, you read the second line, you read the third line, and suddenly you go to the fifth line instead of the fourth line. So if you have a pointer, the chances of missing a line or missing a word in the same line is minimized. And this is an important, it also and your eyes and your hands are in perfect sync. So you don't miss anything and you can read faster. Your brain is able to process the information in a faster way. Of course, you need to undergo professional training for that. So metaguiding also involves drawing invisible shapes on a page or text to broaden the visual span. आपका जो visual span है, वो दायरा जो देखने का है, वो काफ़ी बढ़ जाता है, वो broaden हो जाता है, so that you can see in a more comprehensive and in a better manner. Your field of view actually undergoes a great change and it increases. So such a practice, the practice of pointing something, pointing with a pen or a pencil, actually, the practice, it will speed up the visual cortex, enabling faster reading. The visual cortex in the eye will speed up, and it will result in faster reading. It also increases the visual span to make in the whole line of words. So you can take the whole line of words rather uh, rather than just a few fragments of it. And the third and the most important part is that the information is imprinted in your subconscious mind for later retrieval. So this was a technique which I mentioned was devised by Evelyn Wood, and uh, many professionals who undergo training use this particular method of reading in their lives, in their professional lives. So with this, we have covered the reading skills, the four methods that were there. And I hope you found that useful, this particular session. And CIMAGE is right now in these difficult times, CIMAGE group of institution is has made an endeavor to reach out to the students through this YouTube live channel of CIMAGE. And I hope that most of you make the most of it, take advantage of this facility that has been given to you and extended to all students all over. And I hope that you let others also know, that you share this information with others so that they too can take some kind of a benefit. With this, I wrap up my session for today. I'll be back with more future in the near future. I'll be back with more lessons, which I hope you will find very fruitful and enhance your process of learning. Thank you so much.